for finding out that what is the parent object on which we have this lightning quick action, we are going to implement an interface called force has object name, which will give us the object name. Now for that, there is a uh, default attribute which is present in the backend. We don't need to actually create that attribute. Now, when I say attribute in Aura, it means like a variable. How you have variables in Apex, same way you have variables in Aura component, but we call them attribute. Now, in order to be getting the object name, there is a attribute which Aura provides us with, which is called S object name, I think. Yes, S object name. We can directly use it. Now, whenever a lightning or a lightning component loads, okay, the component itself gets loaded, I want to perform certain operation. Now, how can I do that? For that, we always have a handler. Handler is basically it takes care or it handles this particular event. Now, what is it handling? It is handling the initialization of this component. And what am I doing? I'm calling this method. So whenever you will call a method in Aura, you are going to use c dot do init. And this is kind of the syntax of it. Let me say this. Now, whenever you have this method given in your component, the method name, this method needs to exist in your controller. So now, because I've said that whenever you load this component called lightning component interfaces, you are going to call do init method. So I need to create do init method in my controller component. So I have created do init. Now there are always three parameters that goes within it: component, event, and health. Now, whenever I want to access some attribute that I create in this component, and by the way, all the attributes that you create, you are always going to create it on the component, not on the controller, helper, or anywhere else. Now, once you create an attribute in your component and you want to access it in your controller, you are going to say this parameter, you can call it component, you can call it CMP, you can call it whatever. So that CMP or component dot get, when you are trying to get some variable or attribute, you will call it component dot get. And then this is for the client side. So V represents client side. So we are going to say V dot S object name. Now this S object name ideally should have been declared as an attribute in this component. But like I said, because you are implementing this interface, it comes automatically. You don't need to explicitly declare that. So I'm just displaying the name. Third thing is console.log. Now how you have system.debug in Apex, right? Same way. If you want to debug something and put some comments just for debugging purpose, you can use console.log. You cannot directly see that console.log. What you need to do is, I'll show you. First, we have saved this. Let me click on the page somewhere and click on inspect. Now there are three tabs over here. I'll click on console. Let me refresh. Okay. Now I'll click on generic button. The moment I click on the button, this console will display all the console logs that you have added, just like system.debug. So this is the object name on which the button is placed. This is how we are able to see it. Now, let's say I want to capture the ID of this particular account on this component. How can I do that? For that, we have one more interface called force has record ID. Let's quickly implement that. Again, I'm going to print the record ID. Now, just like I told you, this attribute you don't need to explicitly declare. Same way, if you use this interface called force has record ID, then you are able to get the current records ID. Now, because I'm launching this quick action button from this account, that is why I'm going to get the account ID of this particular account from where I click this button. So that record ID will be fetched with the help of this interface and it will get stored in an attribute called record ID. I don't need to explicitly create that attribute and I can just use it. But make sure when you use these standard attributes, you follow the case because it's case sensitive. So S object name is S small, O capital, N capital, and here it's R small, I capital. Let me save it. Let me refresh it. Now you see it gives me the object name and second one, it gives me the ID. It ends with 8ZWAAJ. 8ZWAAJ. So it gives us the current accounts record ID. Now the next thing is, okay. Now let me go to account record page. Let me edit it. When you go to the Lightning record page and you try to search some component, you could find the Aura component over here, right? But this component called Lightning interfaces is not available. I'm not able to find it here. So what is the reason? That is because I have not implemented an interface. If you want to display or make a Lightning component or a Lightning component available for a particular, I mean, for any record page, then you need to implement this interface called available for record home. Let me save it. Let me refresh the account record page now. You see, now I have that Lightning component. Let's suppose I am dragging and dropping that component over here. I can do that. It's simply that now I have it available with me, right? So let me save it. Okay, I'm not sure if this, okay, I'm not sure if this Lightning record page is assigned org wide or what. I need to check all that. But anyhow, this was just to show you that how to make a Lightning component available for a record page. Now, the next thing is, let's say we have a app page or home page. Let's suppose this one. Okay, I'm trying to find my component here, which I cannot. Now, in order to be able to find a Lightning component on an app page or all the pages, like let's say home page, app page, record page, then for that, I have another interface called Flexi page available for all page types. So any Lightning app builder page that you have, once you implement this interface, you can find your Aura component on an app page as well. So now I'm editing the app page. You see now I can see my Lightning component. I can drag and drop that and it is available. You can use it. Okay. Now the next thing is, let's say I'm creating a tab. Lightning component tab. Okay. I'm creating a new tab. I cannot find my component here. Again, for that, there is a separate interface that you need to use, which is Force App Hostable. Once you implement that, you will be able to find your Lightning component for a tab. Let me refresh. Come back to Lightning component tab. Here it is Lightning component interfaces. I can now create a tab. Do next. So I created a tab. Let me refresh. I forgot the name that I gave to that tab. But anyhow, when you click on that tab, it will just open that Lightning component. Yeah, it's LC. I don't think we have written anything in our component. Yeah, we don't have anything. So that's why it's not displaying anything. Let me write conf1. Okay, you have compound written here. So yeah, this is to open Lightning component from a tab. So these were the most important interfaces that we actually use all the time. For the further course, you just
Now, the
stay
next
tuned
thing that
and
we are
we will
going to
start.
do is learn how to actually query a data from Apex and display it on or just use it in our Lightning or a Lightning component. For that, first thing that I've done is created a component called fetch data component. Along with that, this bundle came out. Then I've implemented two interfaces here, quick action and has post record ID, so that I'm able to use this Lightning component in the quick action and I get the ID of the current record, have the ID of the current account record. Now for that, what do we need to do? First of all, I've created an Apex class wherein I am fetching the account data. What am I passing as a parameter? I'm passing the record ID of that particular account. And using that record ID, I'm getting the ID rating annual revenue from account where the ID is equal to that particular ID. Now, in able to use this method from my Aura component, it is mandatory to have at the rate Aura enabled notation. If you do not have this, then your Aura component will not be able to find this method in the Apex class. So this is a mandatory thing. Now, second thing that you need to make sure is you need to add a controller. So you need to tell the Aura component from which Apex class are you going to get or are you going to call? Which Apex class are you going to call? So this is my Apex class. I am going to use controller equal to generic Apex class. Now my Lightning Aura component knows that whichever method I'm calling is going to be present in this class and it has to look at in this class only. So this is the second step that we need to do. Now the third step is, so what I want is the moment this component loads, I want the account details to be fetched. So for that, first of all, I need to create a handler, like I told in the like before few minutes, like this is do init. This method will be called when this component is initialized. So we need to have this method created in our controller. So let's quickly go and create this method in our controller. This is that method which will get called. Now we need to give three parameters like I explained before, component, event, and helper. Now, in order to call a Apex class method, the first thing that we need to do is write this line of code where action equals, this is I'm declaring a variable component.get. Now, because I am calling a method, I'm going to say c dot, not v dot. V dot is for attribute and c dot is for method. So c dot fetch account data. Now it will go in this particular class and search for fetch account data method over here. Now, why that particular class is because I've declared the controller as this one. So whichever method I'm calling from Apex, it knows that it has to go and find for that method in that specific class only. Now the next line is I want to pass the parameter to this particular Apex class. Now, whatever parameter name that you have given here, you need to exactly give it over here. So record ID where is the exact name that I have in my parameter over here. And here is what I'm passing the component.get v.record ID. Now, like I explained before, record ID will be automatically obtained in an attribute like called record ID. That is because we have declared this or implemented this interface. And the syntax is action.setParent. So this is where we are setting the parameters. So that is the next line. Now set callback. Let me write all the remaining lines. This is a very, very common syntax that you're going to use throughout. So please make sure that you remember this action.set callback. I'm calling this method and getting a response back after calling that method. Now the next line says response.get state. So I'm going to store the state of that particular transaction that happened, that call that happened. Now I'm going to just display that state. So I've written it in console.log. The next line is if state is success, then we need to further do whatever we want to do. And then closing the parenthesis and $a.enqueue action. Now, what do you mean by $a.enqueue action? Whatever that you write here, it is enqueuing everything. And at the end, when you write the $a.enqueue action, that is when it actually goes to the server. Now, like I explained before, whenever I say server, it means it actually goes to Apex and executes all these things after you do this particular statement. This action is whatever you have declared over here that you need to write over here and over here as well. Okay. Now, what if the state is success? What do I need to do? So what I need to do is I am returning the account record over here. So I need to store that account record in my Aura component. Now for that, I need to declare an attribute. Like I explained before, attributes are nothing but variables that we have in Aura component. So how to declare an attribute? This is the syntax for that. Aura attribute, give it some name and give it some type. Type could be primitive type like string, integer and all that, or the S object or a particular S object. S object, by S object, I mean type equal to object it could be, or it could be type equal to some standard or custom object. Now here I'm retrieving account record. So that is why I've given the name as account record and type as account, the standard account object. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is, here you saw how can we get the value from a particular attribute. You can use component.get. But what if we want to set some value in an attribute? So this is my attribute and I want to set some value in it. So for that, the syntax is component.set. Now this component is whatever you have given over here that you need to write. V dot, because it's an attribute, we are going to use V dot, and then the attribute name, comma, and then here is the response that we retrieved from Apex. So that response dot get return value. So whatever is returned from this Apex class, which is the account record, will come here and it will get set in the account record variable or the attribute that we have. So here, if I go and display account record, I should be able to see it. And this is how you display something in the Lightning component. Let me go to account. This time I'll use this component with my quick action. So let me go to that generic button, use a different Lightning component. What's the name? Yeah, I forgot the name. Okay, fetch data component. Okay. Let us refresh. You won't see the actual this one. You will just see object, but never mind. We can also display it this way. Or since we have written this, we can also write so I'm also retrieving name now. And here I've displayed account record.name. So you see now I have the name of that particular account. This is how we could fetch data from our Apex or from server side. Okay. Now the next thing is, let's say on the basis of some condition, let's say that if my rating is hot and my annual revenue is greater than or equal to 50,000, then I want to display a message called good account. And if it is anything other than hot, or if the rate or if the annual revenue is lesser than 50,000, then I want to say not a good account. Okay. So how do I do that? So that is our next thing that we are going to see. For that, we have Aura if. Now, what am I doing here? I am saying, first of all, this exclamation is mandatory. Then I am doing a and condition because I want both of these conditions to fulfill. So that's why I write and. Or let us do one thing. Let us first only take this part. Let's start with a simple thing. So first of all, I'm just giving one condition. If the rating is hot, then I'm saying it's a good account. Else, I'm saying not a good account. Let me save it. Okay. This is the condition that we are giving. Now this account record, you saw the logic, how we inserted our account record over here, and then we can access the field in that account record. So I'm accessing the rating field in my account and checking if it is hot, then good. If not hot, then it's not a good account. This is how you write aura if set else, and then close the aura if and close the aura set. Let me refresh. Okay, it's not yet refreshing. Okay, so now you see not a good account because the rating is not hot. Let me change the rating to hot and let me save it. Now when I press this button, now you see I see good account. But now let's advance a little bit and let's say we want to check two conditions. So for that, all we need to do is put this inside a bracket, add a and over here. The second criteria would go after a comma. And I'm going to say that if the account records annual revenue is greater than or equal to 50,000 and plus the rating is hot, only then display good account. Let me refresh this a couple of times. Not a good account. Why? Because it's not refreshed. So now you see good account because the rating is hot and the annual revenue is 50,000. Let me change it to 40,000 and save it. Now, although the rating is hot, but because the annual revenue is not greater than equal to 50,000, so that's why it should say not a good account. And here is what it does. So this is how you write a if else. Now, just imagine if I could get the account data without making a call to the server side. That would be great, right? So that is what is our next topic. How can we query the data without actually calling the Apex or without making a server side call? For that, Aura component provides us with Lightning data services. Now, because of that, you don't have to actually make a call to server. So let me show you how is that possible. So I've created a component for that called force record data component. Again, here Lightning Quick Action has record ID. I'll create an attribute here so that when we get the account record, we store it in this attribute. Second thing that I'm going to do is this is where I'll get my data from. You don't have to make a Apex query. Rather, Aura handles it itself. This is force record data. This is a Lightning data service. In the record ID, I'm giving the ID of the current account for which I'm going to load or I'm going to fetch some values. Now, for which fields, like let's say when I make a query, I'm giving the object name, ID value, and which all fields am I querying, right? Similarly, which all fields do I want the record data for are to be mentioned in this fields attribute or fields attribute of this particular force record data. Now, after it gets me all these fields for this particular record, where is it supposed to save that particular account record? So it is supposed to save it in this variable. Now, because it is an attribute, I'm saying v dot everywhere you could see, right? So I've declared this attribute over here, and this is where I'm going to store that fetched account data. After it has fetched or after this component has loaded, what should happen? So the moment this component has loaded, because of that, this also gets loaded. Now, when this gets loaded, that is when this will run. So whatever method is given in this attribute will run. We have given the method called as query record loaded. So we are going to create that method called query record loaded over here. But before that, let's give all the fields that we required in the query fields. So for that, we are going to create an attribute of type string array. Here it is. I want ID, I want name, rating, and annual revenue. So all these fields are going to get queried because I've mentioned in the fields that pick all the fields which are mentioned in query fields. For which record ID, this record ID which we are going to get, like the current account ID, and where am I going to store in account record? And when will all this happen? Like what I mean to say is, this component or this force record data will get loaded. It will go and run this particular method. So let's define this method. All that I'm doing in this method is, first of all, I'm saying printing a log which says that I have come in this method. Next, I have declared a variable of type let, which I'm calling field values. Then I am getting component.get and this particular record. All the fields which were there in that query fields, right? All the fields with their values get stored over here. Now from those field values, which field do I want to access? Let's say I want to access the name field. So I would go console.log and I'm displaying the name field out of that and just save. Let me refresh now. I hope this is okay. This is another component, force record data com. So first of all, let me change my generic button to now point towards that force record data component. So here you see now I'm not calling Apex, but I'm using a LDS to get the record data for me rather than doing a Apex call. Now let's click on generic button. We won't see anything here because I don't think we have printed anything. But when you do inspect and you go to console, you see query record loaded is printed and the name is printed of that particular account. Now here we can do that if else again. So because now we have our value stored in this account record, like how we did in the previous component, we can do the same thing. Use that account record dot rating, which is a field in the account, and annual revenue, which is again a field, and display good or bad depending on what value did we get. So right now the rating is hot and annual revenue is 40,000. So it should display not a good account. You see, not a good account. But let me change it to now 60,000. Good account. So that's about it. Let's continue further. Now, the next thing that we are going to do is, previously we saw how to fetch data using Apex or using LDS. Now, the next thing that we are going to do is how to create a record from Aura into our Salesforce, right? So let's quickly begin. For that, I've created a Lightning component in which I'm calling this controller again, generic Apex class. It implements these two things. Now, in my generic Apex class, I've created a method called create contact point email data. I have account, I have contact point email object, which is the child of the account. From account, I'm going to click on this lightning quick action generic button. And what it should do is it should save that particular record in the contact point email. Now, for us to be able to save a record in the contact point email, we need a form wherein we could enter the email address, type, and all that, right? First of all, let me go and show you what all fields do I have on contact point email. I have email address. That's one of the major field that we are going to use. Email type is primary. Parent ID, right? This is how we associate. Parent ID is a polymorphic field. Polymorphic means I hope you know what is a polymorphic field. It could be linked to an account as well as to an individual. And we have one more field called account underscore underscore C, which is purely looking up to account. Now, in order for me to be able to enter everything, I need to create a form.
So first of all, I need some input fields, right? So this is how you search for that lightning input. You go here and there you find the entire document. By the way, here you can find all the interfaces also. So if you click on the interfaces view as list, you can see all the interfaces that you have in Aura. But right now we are looking for input. So within Aura Lightning input, I have this one. So right now in this exercise that we are doing, I'm going to display two fields. One is email address and the other is checkbox, which is primary. So we have a input kind of a field for email also. So if you don't enter a valid email address, it is going to take care of that and give you a validation error. You don't need to explicitly write anything for that. The next is checkbox. So let me create these two things in my component quickly. The type is email, type is checkbox here, name is email address, name is primary here. Whatever we enter in this field, I want it to get stored in this particular attribute. And the true or false value that would be entered by me should get stored in this particular attribute. The label is email address and is primary respectively. Now, because we have these two attributes in which I'm going to store the value that I enter, I need to create attributes for that. So here are my two attributes. Okay. Now the next thing is when I enter these attributes, then I need to save it in my database, right? So for that, I need to have some kind of a button. So just like how I found input, you can also find button. So there is this lightning button, label would be saved. And on click, I'm going to call this method. So let's quickly declare this method or put together this method. So in my controller, I'm going and creating this method. Now the very common syntax, again, which method are we calling? This one. Before that, let's quickly check that we have the controller. Oh yes, we have it. Within this particular class, I'm going to call this method create CPE data. So that's why I wrote that over here. I'm going to send some parameters. Let's check out what are the parameters. I'm passing the email address, is primary, and parent field, right? So action.setParams and within curly braces and then closing the round bracket. All the parameters are separated by comma. First one is email address, so the name should be exactly same. Email address here, yeah, is primary I small p capital, and parent p small, okay, parent. And whatever values I have in these attributes, once I enter them, I'm going to pass them to my Apex class. Next is set callback and enqueue action. You can ignore all this for now and tell you what it was later. So getting the state and displaying it. If it is success, we'll do everything further later. But for now, going to our generic button. Let me now call create data component, save. Let us refresh this a couple of times. You see this form has got created. Let us enter a email address and if it is primary or not. And let me save it. Actually, we should have used lightning quick action without header so that we didn't see this cancel and this header, but anyhow, it's okay. I'll just save it and you see the state is success. So it should have got successfully saved, but nothing else happened. It did not show me any message that it got saved successfully or not because user is not going to come and check the console, right? They need some kind of a message. So first of all, let me show you if that record got created or not. Let's go to the related. So you see a email address got created. But now our other requirement is that if it is successfully created, first of all, it should show me some message that it is successfully created. And secondly, that lightning component should get closed by itself, right? So for the first requirement that we have, it should show us a message. We need to create a toast message. Now, what is a toast message? I'll show you. So first I'll say toast event equal to, and then this is a standard thing that we use, $a.get e.force show toast. Then here in the title, you have different types of toast messages. Let me Google and show you. So this is how you write a toast message. Let's also give type equal to success. If you don't, it will show you a gray colored toast message box. Because I've mentioned a type, it's going to show me differently. You see, now it shows me a toast message. This is a toast message. Now I want to close this component as well. For that, we have this simple line of a code which says close quick action. So let me refresh. Now the quick action also got closed. So this is how you use Apex, you use toast messages, and you use other things like close quick action and all that. Now in this also we can use LDS. Rather than me going and doing this, sending Apex call and in Apex we insert the data and all that. Rather than doing that, we can use LDS. Now how can we do that? So one of the LDS that we could use is record component. Sorry, just 1 minute. Record form. Yeah, we can use the Lightning record form to insert data without actually making a server side call to Apex and Apex doing it, right? So we can do that. So let's see how can we do that. Now, when we use a record form component, right, we don't even need to create a form in a customized way. We already get it. We don't need to create anything. So how to use that? You can simply go here and just type record form for Aura. It will show you the record form. Using a record form, you can view a record, you can edit a record, you can create a record, do whatever you want. Okay. But right now, the example that I'm going to show you is of how to create a record. So let's quickly begin. So I'm going to replace everything that I did in Apex with this one. So this time I'm saying Lightning record form. Which objects record do I want to create? I'll give the API name of that object. So it is contact point email. What all fields do I need to show on that form that Salesforce Aura is going to create for me? I need to mention those fields here. If I want to show it in one column, I won't even declare this over here. And edit is like when you first of all open that component, does it show it to you in editable format or view? And then when you click on the pencil icon, it becomes editable. So I want it to be editable right away. So I've declared the mode as edit. And what should happen once it successfully saves the record in database? That is what uh, will happen, whatever we define in this method. So we say c.handle CPA success. We need to have a method and define whatever needs to happen there. Now, first of all, I'll have to specify which all fields needs to be displayed, right? So here are the
list of all fields that I want to display in my form, parent ID, account, email address, type, and is primary. So I don't need to create a custom form here. So no using lightning input and all that. And what do I want to do when it is successfully saved is I want to show a toast message and I want to just close the quick action. So that's it that I've done, showing a toast message and closing the quick action. Let's go to the generic button and now use the record form component. Okay, here it is. Let me refresh. So you see now we have all the fields displayed here. So I'm putting the account name over here, email address, mail type is primary, and save. So once it is saved successfully, it shows this toast message and it closes the quick action. If I go here and check, you see it got created. So that's how simple it is. I don't even have to do anything, just use the lightning record. But now here one challenge that you face is when I click on this and this component opens, I have to manually populate the account here. But let's say I want to auto populate these two fields with the account from which I'm clicking this component. That's one thing. The other problem is all the fields are showing in this format, right? Like in this two column layer. But what if I want to display the parent and account single fields in each row, and email address and type should be the same way as it is appearing right now? Or let's say I want email address to be a little broader than the email type. Email type needs to be a little shrinked up. Now, what do I do for that? So if you have any such requirement, where whatever like I showed right now, then there is another alternative for you. That is lightning record edit form. So let's quickly see that. Now, because I want to create a lightning record edit form, I just added that. Again, that you could find over here if you Google. Aura ID, I'm giving it some name. Object name. Now, which object record do I want to insert? So it is contact point email. That's why I've entered contact point email. What should happen when this particular component loads? What should happen when it successfully saves? And what should happen when it gives an error? So these are the three methods that we need to create. But before that, like I told you, one of the issues was that I want this field to be displayed in one row, this one in another row, these two in the same row, and then is primary. So how is this going to help? That is because in the earlier component, you were giving the list of all the fields that you had. Let me open that component. You were just giving the list of all the fields at once, right? And at most, what you can customize is just use one column or two column or whatever you want. But this is like not uniformly, I'm not using one column or two column. For two fields, I want to use one column, and for one row, I want to use two column, and for other again one column. So it's like different things that I want to do. Now that flexibility you don't get in lightning record form, whereas that flexibility you get in lightning record edit form. That is because you are not specifying a list of all the fields here, but rather you have the freedom to specify each and every field over here. So what am I doing here? First of all, I'm creating a grid. Now, out of that grid, I'm creating some columns. And what is the size of this particular column? 3 out of 3. So it's like it divides the screen into three parts. When I open this component, 1, 2, and 3. So when I say 3 out of 3, it covers the entire region. So in the first row, I am saying that I want to display parent ID field, which is this one. Now, when you use a Lightning record edit form, there is always something called Lightning input field, which you cannot simply use. You can only use it inside record edit form. So here you give the Aura ID for that field if you want to, and then field name would be the API name of that field. So the API name of parent field on the contact point email object is parent ID. Now the next row, I want to show the account ID field, right? The account. So I'm going to add account in the next row. Then in the third row, I want to show both email address and email type. So I'm going to enter that. So I've entered email address and email type in the third row. And then finally, in the fourth row, I'm adding the is primary field. Okay, now let me go and replace this with record edit form. Let's refresh a couple of times. Now you see, in the first row, we just have one field, which is parent ID. The second row, we have account. In the third row, we have both the fields. And this one is wider as compared to this because I've used two portions out of three for email address and one portion for email type. And at the end, we have is primary, right? Now, in Lightning record form, we didn't have to go and explicitly write a like add a button, right? When we had Lightning record form, it was automatically giving me a button. But here I need to do that. When I use a Lightning record edit form, I need to create a button too. Although I don't have to write any code logic behind that button, but inside Lightning record edit form, I need to create a Lightning button whose type is submit and label could be whatever, and class could be whatever that you are doing. This is SLDS designing and all that, which is not going to be covered as part of this tutorial, but anyhow. So let me refresh. Now we have the save button. So whenever I save that, it is actually going to go and save my rep. But before that, there was another problem that I said. When I click on this button, I don't know why this is happening because I can't troubleshoot. Otherwise, the time limit of this video will exceed. Okay, so the other issue that we had was with the Lightning record form was that the account was not getting populated. Now here we can do that. How is that possible is on load, I am able to call a method, right? On load. So whenever this Lightning record edit form will get loaded, I can customize the behavior and I can put some values inside, inject some values inside if I want to. On load could be used in Lightning record form as well. But because we are not specifying their individual fields like this, we don't have the Aura ID. And that's why we cannot go inside that field and enter that value or inject that value in that field. But here we have the freedom because we are able to specify each and every field and we are putting the Aura ID as a field. Now let me show you how are we able to do that. So first of all, what are we going to do is this is the method which is going to get called on this component being loaded. So let me create that method. The name is handle create load. Now you will see the syntax here, component dot find parent field and account field. What are they? So these two fields that I have, right? Parent ID and account, I gave them some Aura ID. One's name is parent field, the other's name is account field. So I'm just finding that and then I'm setting its value. So I would say v dot value and then component dot get the current record ID, which I'll be getting because of this. I'm putting that current accounts ID into these two fields. So it will go and inject into these two fields. But in Lightning record form, I was not able to mention Aura ID for the field, right? So that is why I was not able to do that in the Lightning record form, but we are able to do this in record edit form. So now I've saved this. Okay. The other thing that I want to do is on handle success. So whenever it will save my record, I just want to call this method called handle success. And inside that method, I just want to show the toast message and close the quick action. So let me save this. Okay, let's refresh quickly. So this time you see the parent and account got pre-populated. and the quick action got closed and it shows us the toast message. Let's go to related. So this is the email address that we had created and we were able to successfully create it. So this was about creating a record using. Now the next thing is when you want to edit an existing record using the Lightning record form, how do you do that? So that is the same as we did the Lightning record form earlier. The only difference is that you specify the record ID, which record is supposed to be edited. So that you get from here. The other difference is that because you are going to use the the standard edit button with this particular Lightning component, you need to implement one more interface called Lightning Action Override. Only when you do that, then if you go to contact point email and let's say you edit the edit button, and instead of no override, when you use the Lightning component, this component would appear because you have implemented this interface called Lightning Action Override. So I've just done that. In handle success, all I'm doing is showing the success message. In the field CPE, I'm going to show all the fields that I want in my form. And yeah, let me just edit the generic button. Not generic button, I'm sorry. Yeah, so we have used this Lightning component over here. Now I'm going to refresh. Let me edit this. I have not beautified this at all, but let's just go over how it functions. I am changing the email address and email type to office and save. This time it's saved. Let me go back. You see the email address got updated. So this is how you use the same Lightning record form for updating a record.